In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement. We are a weekly show that helps people just like you know about all things retirement. I'm your host, Rick Everett, along with a full complement of panelists to include Financial Advisor with Market Advisory Group, Julie Newton. From Market Tax Services, Tax Specialist, Susan Curtis. And from Market Medicare Advisor, one of our advisors with that team, Taylor Bevan, along with our estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm, Gerald Eidelman. Welcome in, everyone. Julie, before the show, you were telling me a story about John and Jeanette, who were hit with a major illness and incurable diagnosis health-wise, and how that affected their retirement and their retirement planning. Can you tell us a little bit more about their situation?
So when John and Jeanette originally came to see us, they came because they were really concerned about their investments. In 2022, they lost quite a bit of money, and so that was obviously the number one concern. And so they wanted to have a little bit of kind of a review and understand what was going on there. But during the time frame in which we were getting to know them, she unfortunately was given a terminal diagnosis. And so that completely changed the conversation at that point. And so we had to start thinking about other things of how we were going to handle the situation.
One can only imagine how a diagnosis would completely alter how your plans had been set to go forward. So how did you proceed?
Well, unfortunately, it's something that we commonly see as we work with retirees. But in their particular situation, Jeanette was 64. She hadn't started drawing her Social Security benefit yet, and she hadn't started receiving Medicare because she wasn't eligible, of course. And she was not working because of her health. And John was about 12 years younger. He was self-employed. So there were a lot of different pieces moving on this. Both of them were currently receiving health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. So that was something we wanted to talk about first.
So when somebody begins drawing Social Security, that increases their income, and it can change how much they're paying for a Medicare product, their Medicare insurance. I'm assuming the first part of the planning conversation was, in fact, health insurance?
Of course, absolutely had to address that first. I mean, when you have someone who's received a terminal diagnosis, you want to make sure that the health insurance is in place and that it's going to be adequate no matter what kind of treatment they're going to need. Make sure that they can see the specialist that they need to see. So you really want to be sure that you're working with an entire team to make sure that that coverage is in place appropriately and that it can take care of them. But at the same time, you have to think about John, who wasn't eligible for Medicare for quite a while.
Now, Taylor Bevan, you're one of our specialists with Market Medicare Advisors. From an insurance perspective, what could you do to help John and Jeanette since neither one of them was quite yet eligible for Medicare?
So in some extreme circumstances, somebody with a terminal diagnosis could potentially start Medicare early. Unfortunately, in Jeanette's situation, her diagnosis did not fall in the criteria for that. However, she was only 3 months from turning 65. And so with that being said, you can apply. You have a 3-month period before or after the date you turn 65, the month you turn 65, to sign up for Medicare. And so we were able to look at supplement and advantage plans to determine what would fit her best. For her specific situation, we ended up going with a supplement, and that's not to say that the Medicare Advantage was a bad choice, it just didn't fit her best. And in John's case, since he was still working because he was self-employed, we actually had to look at their income to see if there was going to be any changes for their 2024 income. And then from there, we would look at the Affordable Care Act to determine what plan would be best for him to go with.
Now, this was a very unique situation, and it set in play a unique scenario where you were able to help because of a health crisis, for lack of better terms. But at Market Medicare Advisors, you're no stranger to helping people bridge the gap between private pay insurance from an employer and that bridge that you need to fill between employer insurance and Medicare. This is something you guys do all the time, isn't it?
Right, and there's so many options out there that people get confused, and so we can help them with all of those Medicare and Affordable Care Act options, so we don't do solely just Medicare.
Now, in an optimal situation, I know people, the government recommends when it comes to filing for Social Security that you begin the process about 4 months out. How about with Medicare? How far in advance of someone turning 65 should they be actually getting in touch with yourself or one of our professionals at Market Medicare Advisors to begin the process of Medicare enrollment?
So typically we like a 3-month period before the month they turn 65. That's going to be easiest on us, and it's going to be easiest on the person that is signing up. We can do it in 2 months, but that's going to add some stress to the process. And it just is, it makes it way more easier, and it runs a lot smoother for everybody if we get them in 3 months before the month they turn 65.
What would be your recommendation to somebody who's facing that gap in insurance coverage? They know that their employment is going to end maybe 6 months before they're Medicare eligible, and they're considering COBRA insurance. What would be your recommendation to them? Look at all the options?
Well, so unfortunately, COBRA is not considered credible coverage in the eyes of Medicare. There are some circumstances where taking that COBRA would be okay, but that is a very brief window that you have to be on that coverage and still qualify without any penalties. So we would definitely want to have that person come in and have that conversation to see what is going to be best for their specific situation and what they can afford.
When we look at the situation of John and Jeanette, there were a lot of things coming into play. They had a retirement plan they thought in place. Things were going to be good, but then life threw them a curveball.
Yeah, and you know what? It happens a lot in retirement. Things are going to change. You know, we're not necessarily going to have that perfect picture of a retirement. There's always going to be something coming up. There's always going to be changes that happen. And so that's where we work as a team to make sure that we are taking care of all aspects, you know, whether it's the investment piece, whether it's the health insurance or the taxes or even the estate planning. We're looking at all of the life of that person or couple to make sure that we're addressing all of those needs appropriately.
Most of us look forward to retirement as a reward for a life of hard work. In a perfect world, our reward wouldn't be tarnished by an unexpected health crisis. Market Advisory Group is here to help take the weight off of retirement planning. In good and difficult times, take that weight off your shoulders so that you can focus on what really matters. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. Again, the number to call, 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with more of the show and this story right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors, all in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Shocker Rowing.
Welcome back into Ion Retirement. In the prior segment, we were talking about John and his wife Jeanette, who had received a difficult diagnosis. Julie, you're talking to someone who's been given months to live. How do you decide what to take care of next in what must be dozens of issues that need to be addressed?
You know, that's a really good question because it is hard to know what should we do next. But in this particular situation, once we had that healthcare piece in place, then it was time to start having the most difficult conversation of all, and that was end-of-life planning. And of course, end-of-life planning requires a look at estate planning because you have to have that will and trust and those kinds of documents in place, power of attorneys, making sure that they were ready to move into that phase of their life.
Gerald Eidelman, our estate planning attorney with Eidelman Law Firm. The average person has no idea when their last day might be. But for Jeanette, it wasn't just a date at some unknown point in the future. I'd have to think that the conversation differs greatly between someone who doesn't know when their time here is to come to an end and someone like Jeanette.
Right. I mean, obviously, the first thing that changes is the sense of urgency. We have to move along. We don't know when this person is going to pass. Sometimes, they give somebody 6 months and it turns out to be 3 weeks. So we need to move very quickly and being able to set up something for them that represents their wishes and desires. In this case, I mean, there was some desire for Jeanette to have some charitable giving. And she didn't have any children. She had nieces and nephews that she wanted to leave things to. And without a proper planning, she couldn't accomplish any of that.
Is part of that proper planning, whether it's Jeanette or just any plan you're putting together, a healthcare directive?
Well, we include a healthcare directive in some plans, and the healthcare directive gives you a lot of options as to what you want to happen with your health treatment. So if you want to be kept don't want to receive nutrition, liquids, food, if you don't want to be in life support, if you want to have your body donated to science, all of these things come into play in a healthcare directive, and you can make choices like that. Now, not everybody does. In general, we use what's called a living will, and the living will basically states the desire of the person not to be kept in artificial life support if they're terminally ill with no chance of recovery. That's typical the way we set things up for.
Is a healthcare directive and the power of attorney as it pertains to healthcare decisions, is that one and the same?
No. Well, it depends on what state. But in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. In Kansas, it's not. In Missouri, it is. So.
Okay. Julie, we've talked about health issues. We've talked about estate planning. But we haven't addressed the issue of whether or not Jeanette should draw her Social Security benefit now or not.
That was originally one of the main questions that Jeanette had. And so after her diagnosis, things kind of started to change in terms of what conversations we needed to have, obviously. But in this situation, it wasn't a matter of when she should start drawing it, but let's draw it now. And then what are we going to do with taxes? How are the taxes going to affect their particular situation going forward?
So we'll get to our tax situation in the next segment.
Right.
You know, whether life plans go very similar to what you'd imagined or life ends up throwing you a curveball, having a team that is there for you in every aspect of retirement planning is critical to ensure that you have the best path going forward. There's a lot more to an effective retirement plan than being able to say, yeah, I have a person to manage my money. Do you have a team? If not, I encourage you to reach out to us. This team is ready to go to work, whether it's the financial aspects of retirement planning, estate planning, Medicare advising, or tax planning. We do it all, and we do it all under one roof for your convenience. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. Again, the number to call, 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can view past episodes, or if you'd like to set up your own appointment directly, you can access the calendars there to do so. We'll be right back with the second segment of Ion Retirement, third segment of Ion Retirement, right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back into this third and final segment of the show. Today's discussion has been about John and Jeanette and the decisions they had to make after Jeanette was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Julie, before the show, we were talking during the break and before the show, and Jeanette basically had decided to go ahead and draw her Social Security, but was concerned about how that income would impact John's health insurance premiums. Where did you go next in that conversation?
So it wasn't just a matter of how it was going to be affected or how the taxes were going to be affected by her Social Security income. It was also a matter that she had pre-tax accounts. So as we all know, we talked so many times on the show about how those pre-tax accounts affect people tax-wise. And so, you know, we had to start planning not just for the here and now, we also had to be planning for the taxes as well as for John's future, because at some point, without Jeanette, he becomes the single taxpayer. And so there's a lot of planning that has to go into it, and when you get to that point, you definitely need to bring in the full tax team.
Susan Curtis, you're one of our specialists with Market Tax Services. How were you able to help John and Jeanette as far as navigating the tax conversation?
Well, since John is self-employed, we had to make sure that he was taking advantage of all of the deductions that he's eligible for. And in doing so, we realized that there were some things that were being left out. Like, for example, he was working from home. So when we took all that into consideration, it actually made a considerable difference.
Were they able to keep paying the same premiums for the Affordable Care Act insurance?
Well, we don't have that information yet, but we were able to start planning for Jeanette's pre-tax account, seeing that she was going to be reaching the RMD age and whatnot. It's very important that we start mitigating those taxes and create a tax plan for John for his specific situation.
So, as an advisor, I talk with people every day who don't give much thought to taxes until, in a lot of cases, it's too late and it's going to cost them serious money. How do you start that conversation with someone like John, who's still years away from required minimum distributions at age 73?
Well, it started with a calculation from our retirementtax.com website, and we were able to show John how much he was going to end up paying, from retirement and for over his lifetime.
Julie, it's interesting how, we as advisors meet with people all the time, and plans are going along. This is a very sad situation where a diagnosis comes into play, and it seems almost as if plans are accelerated. Gerald, I want to come back to you for a minute. When we talk about putting an entire retirement plan together, I think this case, more so than many others we've ever talked about on Ion Retirement, spotlights the fact of how imperative it is to have an estate plan in place.
Well, absolutely. And I think, part of the benefit that they had from coming to us was that we could look at all aspects of their lives. Estate planning does not exist in a vacuum. Once you make decisions in your estate plan, you have to communicate with the financial advisor to change beneficiaries, maybe. You got to talk to the tax team and find out, okay, if we choose this direction, what's the tax impact of that? So being able to be surrounded by professionals who can communicate with us right away and give us the opportunity to look at their entire life, we can do a much better plan than if we were just looking at a narrow piece and just thinking only of the estate plan itself.
For the years and years and years that you've been working with Market Advisory Group with Eidelman Law Firm, and then going back to your years in private practice prior to that, can you attest to the fact that being involved with the entire process, with the investment advisors, the tax advisors, the Medicare advisors, and life were to throw a curveball to a client, it's very helpful to have all of this background, because even though an estate plan may start out one way, that's not necessarily the way that estate plan may end up. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, that's very correct. I mean, circumstances change. Sometimes trusts are written long time ago, and changes in the law necessitate changing it to the current status of law. I mean, I have had clients that basically had a draft, not by me, but an estate plan drafted, and they had no idea of the consequences that it would have if they did it this way. I mean, one example would be transferring retirement accounts. If you try to transfer into a trust without the proper language and permissions, then you wind up having that account being shortened to 5 years distribution. So being able to work with other members of the team is extremely important, because everything that I do will have a tax consequence. When I have people that don't, what winds up happening is that they go to their tax advisor and they convey what I told them to do, and the tax advisor doesn't understand what you're doing, And then you wind up, the client comes back to you and says, this is what they told me. And then I have to go back and say, well, no, this is how it is. Eventually, I talk to the tax representative, tax advisor that they have, but it's so much easier to do it if we are all under one roof.
All under one roof, and in many cases, all around the same conference table, whether it's the estate planning attorney, the Medicare advisor, the tax advisor, or the investment person. The entire team around the same table with the common focus of the client that's before us. When you're working with the right team, it's a lot easier to plan for taxes and for all your retirement, even if life throws you an unexpected turn of events. The confidence that comes with having a team that can help you navigate every turn of the road that life throws you in retirement and retirement planning is immeasurable. Find out how our team can go to work for you in all aspects of retirement planning. Make that call for your complimentary, no-obligation consultation at 316-252-8707. Again, the number to call is 316-252-8707, and have this team take a look at your current plan or put together a plan for you. Whether it's the investment side, the tax planning side, Medicare advising, or estate planning, we do it all under one roof, and we do it that way for your convenience. That's about all the time we have for this week. I'm Rick Everett, along with the entire team here, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
All client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.